So people language, the language which can be spoken, which can be put into words, as a play, as a picture of what's really painting. The language of people can describe the natural truths such as weather, food, air composition, movement, G-force, but it can never describe the soul and the inner beliefs of one. That is where Dhamma language comes in. That is when a simple smile or nod of the head speaks more than 1,000 words. The word die provides another example. In people language, to die means that the bodily functions have stopped, which is the kind of death we can see with our eyes. However, die in the language used by God has a quite different meaning, such as when he spoke to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, telling them not to eat the fruit of a certain tree. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall die. Genesis 2:17. Eventually, Adam and Eve ate the fruit, but we know that they didn't die in the ordinary sense, the kind that puts people into coffins. That is, their bodies didn't die. Instead, they died in another way, in the Dhamma language sense, which is a spiritual death much more cruel than being buried in a coffin. This fate, worse than death, was the appearance of enormous sin in their mind. That is, they began to think in dualistic terms, good and evil, male and female, naked and clothed, and so on. So much that their minds were flooded by a suffering so severe that it's impossible to describe. All these have been passed down through the years and inherited by everyone living in the present era. The consequences have been so disastrous that the Christian give the name original sin to the first appearance of dualistic thinking. Original sin first happened with that primordial couple and then was passed on to all their descendants down to this very day. It has the same meaning in the language of the Buddha. Why is this so? Because both religions are pointing towards the same truth concerning attachment and dualism. Whenever dualistic thoughts arise, there is bound to be suffering, which is death. Death means the end of everything good, the end of happiness, the end of peace, the end of everything worthwhile. This is the meaning of death in Dhamma language. Most of us die this way many times each day. It's called death because it makes the heart heavy. It always creates a feeling of frustration and depression to some degree, not to mention worry, restlessness, and an anxiety. The more intelligent and clever a person is, the more often one dies and the more profound the deaths. The clever person's deaths are much more special and creative than those of an ignorant person. That is because the neural activations are much more powerful, and therefore the clingings of wisdom and foolishness, of good and evil, of that is good, that is wrong, the machine, the prediction machine, which is the brain, the extraordinary prediction machine. It grows more powerful. But without the spiritual enlightenment and eyes to see, then there will only be one buffalo, Tua Reng, which is the outside one, the powerful one, the mind, the computer, the machine, analyzing, performing, predicting patterns, and clinging so extraordinarily to them. Because there is no Tuaru, there is no inside buffalo, the one with knowledge, to guide the powerful mind, to guide this powerful machine in togetherness and obeying. rules and laws of nature. We must know how to avoid death in order to be in accord with the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus, along with many other prophets. The objective of Buddhism is the same as of Christianity, and of suffering. Don't let the original sin overpower you. Don't let dualistic attachment dominate your heart and your mind. Refuse to let it dominate the mind ever again. We must always beware of the true nature of Dhamma, that in reality there is no duality of any sort, no gain, no loss, no happiness, no suffering, no good, no evil, no merit, no sin, no male, no female. There is absolutely nothing at all that can be separated and polarized into opposites. Rather than buy into them, we ought to transcend. Of course, once again, the pillar of Buddhism and the pillar of life itself in all ancient teachings is to not take anything for granted, to not absorb anything as if it were true, spoken by another mind, whatever the environment or the mind, but take the object of the spoken thing and make it your subject of meditation. Scrutinize it with every breath in and out and study it to the most intimate level. Then you will know what is to be known, and you will learn what is to be learned. The dualistic pairs are the basis of all attachment, so don't fall for their tricks. Don't attach to any of them. Try to understand that these things can never be seized and held on to because they are impermanent, anikam, lack any real substance and are not self. Try to go about your business with a mind that is unattached, a clear mind. Work with a mind that clinges to nothing and is free from all forms of attachment. That is called working with a void mind. The computer performing what it has to perform without being stained by echoes and fears that are not necessary to solve the current Dhamma. We should perform every kind of task with a void mind, no matter whether it's at the office or at home. Even rest and recreation should be done with a void mind, a mind that remains unattached and free because it's above all dualities. If we work with a busy mind, a mind that is restless and always grasping and clinging to one thing or idea after another, a mind that is overburdened with attachments, then there is suffering, and we must inevitably be born in a lowly state. The lower realms spoken of by traditional Buddhists happened right then and there. Birth as a demon in hell, as a beast, as a hungry ghost, as a coward, as a titan, they all take place at that very moment. The very role the mind plays, the very neural patterns which activate, and together with the body and the environment, they give rise to the alchemy of the present moment. And right there, the birth is happening. You birth as a friend, you meet another person, you birth as another person, your back starts to hurt, you birth as a friend in pain, you encounter danger, you predict danger in an environment, you predict failure, the failure happens. The birth of the one who fails happens, the birth of the one who fears. You start to feel good. This is the karmic balance of lives and deaths. This is what we carry from other lives into the present moment. This is the true karmic balance in Buddhism. And do not take it for granted, but feel the environment around you and feel the neural patterns as they activate. Feel the billions of neurons going through activation functions and ramificating as mouths of a river, together flowing from all parts, from all senses. They flow into the present moment, and you speak, you breathe, you do something, you think. And you cling so hard of this thought of being yours, of speaking something about you. Therefore, we should live, work and play without attachment. Just enjoy the creation. Use this beast of a body, carrying the touch of God, which turns bread and water into blood and muscles. Extraordinarily, a miracle is right there. The mind, the computer, sits on top of a machine which performs miracles every day. And use this beast to know it, as Plato said. Know its likes and dislikes, know its genetic echoing, know its skills and flaws, know your parents, know yourself, know the beast to the utmost intimate level, and its connectivity to the mind. Know the computer and their coming together, but do not cling to any of it being yours, not the body, not the mind, not the work, not the fruits of the work, but still, despite any of it not being yours, engage in marveling, astonishing dedication and effort towards doing your bidding, towards studying your study. That is the art of life. When everything is let go, then the work of God, the master's work of the alchemist, can truly be performed when there is nothing left but an alchemist who has brought light to all elements, internal and external. And it is right there, recollecting what is it to be recollected in order to solve the present moment Dhamma, and alchemizing, using all elements, knowing that nothing is truly his, that there is no self. It is just all alchemies flowing on and on and on and meeting like 1,000 auxiliary rivers flowing into the mouth of Nile and giving way to the ocean. No, the alchemists. There is what the alchemists have free will. It is not in the sense that they can bend this world to their likings. No. Free will for the alchemist is not that they are in complete control and over nature, but rather with it. They see, they have studied not to control, they have worked not to ripe the fruits of the work, but for the study's sake only, and for the work's sake only. For the extraordinary chance and gift to experience this world, they have brought lights to all alchemies, from G-force, food, sleep, rest, movement, feelings, thoughts, genetic memory, all coming air, the chemical matrix which is being breathed in and out, and how everywhere there is light. How does worm make the beast feel? How does cold? How does that? How does that food, how does that moment, how that person, how that position, how that music, how does the beast feel, how does it feel, what is flowing through all of the senses, what are the alchemists meeting in the present moment? Know them all, and then navigate gracefully, sing, play the violin. There is a short verse which I'd like to discuss. Do work of all kinds with a mind that is void, and to the voidness surrender all of the fruits. Eat the food of voidness, as the holy ones do. You will have died to yourself from the very start. Some people are unable to understand this verse, and they keep saying that the author is crazy. Nonetheless, it isn't so difficult to explain that we should do every kind of work with a void mind is a warning that the busy and agitated mind which jumps into things with attachment always becomes dark and clouded with delusion, is full of worries and fears, and becomes gloomy and insecure. If people insist on keeping this up, before long they are sure to suffer a nervous breakdown or some other kinds of illness. If they let these mental diseases and related physical alignments accumulate, they end up confined to a sick bed. Even though they may be intelligent, talented, and sophisticated people who do important work and earn a great deal of money, they will still end up being confined to a bed with nervous breakdown, ulcers, and other disorders caused by insecurity and anxiety. All of these illnesses begin with attaching and clinging to such things as fame and money, profit and loss, happiness, unhappiness, blame, love, hate, rejection, acceptance. So, don't get involved with these things. Get free of such attachment, and the mind will be void. The mind will be brilliantly intelligent, clear and sharp as possible. Then, do your work with just such a void mind as this. All your needs will be satisfied without the least bit of frustration or suffering. More so, as the mind becomes void, and in the context that a clear void mind has the power and knowledge to know the natural world, study the natural truths and laws of food, movement, G-force, feelings. Then the mind and body, they will get close to 100% functionality, and a feeling of falling in and out of love with life will arise. That is, that the births of eyes will happen and go beautifully and effortlessly. The mind will be aware of the births, depending on the activity and outfit and the outer senses and inner senses. It will birth into a writer, into a cleaner who cleans the house, into a cook, into a friend, into a son, into a lover, into a mover. But it will come with no clinging. It will come as is best put into words, to fall in and out of love. That is, whatever the mind is doing at a specific moment, it can stop without any clinging and attachment, and engage truly with the whole body, mind and spirit into another activity, and do it as well, fully in love, experiencing through all senses. The world is flowing around the alchemist, and he is absorbing it all. there is complete light and knowledge upon the natural world's truth and laws. And life just unfolds. That is where the omens, symbols from the soul of the world, they start to emerge because they can be seen. Just as foreigners coming to our temple in the jungle, they worry about the snakes crawling up at night. Well, I always tell to them that worry not, because after 2 days, once the body and mind have begun to clear, you will see them. There is a mind, a void mind, fully awakened to the senses. Of course, the hardest part is when one begins to study this, when one begins to truly study his activities from a day and life, there will be tremendous amounts of suffering from many senses, which the subconscious mind labels as unsolvable. For example, a person could work with back pain, or could not know how to eat and be in constant irritation of the digestive system, or constantly be covered in fears and predictions of dark futures. These are all alchemies that can birth from certain activities, and they birth a lot of suffering. When suffering is birthed, the activity falls greatly far from being able to fall in love with it, and the mind and the whole system will just focus on the suffering and the unsolvable the unsolvable way to deal with it, because it has no knowledge to fix it. A person who has not studied G-force deeply, who has not studied how gravity works and their body and muscles and tensions and everything, because let's be honest, it is a study worth of putting a life, to truly understand how gravity dissipates into the nervous, into the lymph, into the musculoskeletal system is a true art. To know how to sit, to know how to move, to know how to run, to know how to push. It's a true art. So, as a suffering from G-force may arise, the person will not take the time to study it, because it is greatly overwhelming. So then the mind will fall into some defense or coping mechanism, which is it will try to force another birth. So let's say a person is in pain when he works, or is overwhelmed by dark predictions, by dark uncontrollable predictions of fails and sufferings, and it does not have the power and wisdom to fix this, then it will force another birth. It can force the birth of an eater and start to eat compulsively, or it can force the birth of from sexual energy to sleep with people, or masturbate, or engage in these sorts, or birth as a smoker, or birth as many other births. You see, what they have in common is that in order for a birth to take over the current birthing of the I, which is in suffering, and the mind, it enters a model of wanting to overwrite it, then the new birth must come from a powerful energy. As I spoke before of food, which is the life-sustaining force, the survival instinct. No matter what you feel, no matter what priorities you have, when the beast is hungry, it will find the energy to do so. The birth of the one who seeks, who hunts for food will happen, of the one who eats. Just so with the sexual energy, the life-creating force, the energy from which life comes from. It is no ordinary thing. Only common people speak of sex and of creating life as something being common and done for pleasure. It is far from it. It is one of the most sacred laws of this universe, the life-creating force. It is a force where all life comes from. If one descends into studying that moment beyond the demons of lust and passion, and truly study it with a void mind, it will be one of the most extraordinary things in life. I had the chance to do this one time, where the alchemy of the surroundings allowed a very clear mind to rise and descend into the moment of the life-creating force with a woman I truly loved, with a woman the beast truly loved from the first smell. This is what is the natural truth in terms of mating. It is not the mind choosing alone, and neither a body, but is together. And all which was felt in that moment, in the life-creating force, through all of the senses, starting from smell to skin, was warmth. That is all that this mind could distinguish in those alchemies. But this can be used in a polluted way, that is to masturbate or to partake in dark fantasies or forbidden things which the mind so longly craves for. Why does it crave so much for forbidden things, you wonder? Well, I did too for a long time. But it does not crave for forbidden things. It craves for freedom. And freedom is the dualistic part of when something becomes forbidden. Also, the birth happens of the one who craves for freedom. Look at all nature, at pigeons, of dogs and cats moving around. Nobody moves or lives in predictable, forced patterns. They're free to be with the environment, continuously alive, continuously reacting, continuously being with the environment. Now, I could push it, but the beast has said enough reading and talking. The position was beautiful, was good. But the moment asks for impermanence. Surrender the fruits. There is no mind putting pressure to be done and finished and so on and so on, but just a mind reading the ankles which became tension, the air which became enclosed, the throat which has spoken enough. The body longs for movement now, not more reading. It could have read much more time, but it would have done so in ignorance of the natural truth. And it was clear that once the natural truth of the body, in that current alchemy, asked for it to be finished, if the violinist does not adhere the violin, then music is polluted and suffering rises.